Hey guys, welcome to the Model Citizen Podcast. We're your hosts, Hunter
and Michaela.
We are so excited to have you here. All right, let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Model Citizen Podcast. Sister, how are ya?
I'm good, dude. I have a lot of children downstairs right now. Screaming.
Wait.
It's not Taco Tuesday.
It's not Taco Tuesday?
But now on Thursdays, sometimes the kids come over too.
Is it Faco Tuesday?
It's Faco Tuesday, dude.
Okay, dope. Amazing.
Faco Thursday.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how I love it so much. And now
it is
you
really
know
funny.
how chaotic it is.
Yeah, I gotta say, when I was there and you had this whole Taco Tuesday thing going on, there was children everywhere and there was screaming and some were crying because somebody literally put their foot on them. I mean, it was like
literally chaos.
The kid, like the things that toddlers cry about, I'm just like, it's like, no, like she put her grape on me. And I'm just like, bro, like get over it, you know? But like they're children, they're babies.
No, literally. And and the thing is this. I know you are not around kids as much because you'll be like, you're gonna have to learn this, Ava. You'll be like, bro, you just spit all over me. And
that's how I learned, though, to be fair.
Yeah. And now here's the thing. I'm like, that is a woman who does not have kids. And I love her for that because I'm like, you kind of are going to have to learn this. So like, better her tell you than me.
Sometimes I feel like maybe parents are too close to it and then maybe I'm too far from it. And so that like somewhere we're going to all meet in the middle.
I love it. You literally will be like, bro, to my 3-year-old.
Stop yelling. And it's literally a 3.5-year-old girl. She's just like, it's just so much.
It's so much. And yet some reason I love it. I love being the house.
It's so funny because I feel like I would want my kid to go elsewhere. And that's why I don't have kids. Because I want the kids elsewhere.
Love being the house.
Yeah. You are the house for sure. Like you guys have all the good snacks that are just like, they're not like trash snacks.
Yeah.
They're like,
we have a lot of
snacks
bars.
You want. So many bars, dude, and not your stepdaughter absolutely roasting you guys the other day and saying, you guys only have bars here.
I know, dude. I was like, well, go make something. Like we have so much food. And she was like, I was like, we have so many snacks. She was like, the only snacks you guys have is bars.
And I was like, you're not wrong. Right. She's so real for that.
We're so stacked with bars, dude. It's incredible.
It's a fruit bar. It's a Nutri-Grain bar. It's an only
fig bar.
It's a fig. It's an only these 2 fruit bars. It's a Lara bar. It's a night bar. It's a day bar. I mean, literally, it's all the bars.
So many like healthy bars. And yeah, dude, we're the bar house. So
welcome. So heavy with the Nutri-Grain bar, and I feel like they've been demonized
by my house.
Well, not even that, but I feel like Nutri-Grain bars are so good, and I need, dude, justice for them because I feel like when we went through the whole like keto, like low carb thing, those got such a bad rap, and I'm like, they're fucking delicious. Yes, because I know that because in my mind I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have that, and I'm like, why not?
Dude, that's crazy because I literally give that is my like a good healthy snack for my kids. It's
but
really
it is good.
It's
full of like all the things. I mean, it is good, and I want one right now. And I get the ones from Trader Joe's all the time. The ones that are like a bar walks, or like a fruit walks into a bar or whatever.
Yeah, this blueberry walks into a bar.
Yeah,
brilliant
exactly.
Marketing.
So cute.
We're gonna do a pivot, dude.
Ooh, pivot. We're pivoting.
Pivot. We're so excited to continue this series. We are talking today with Vanessa Marin, and Vanessa is absolutely incredible. I think, Michaela, you were the one who originally showed me Vanessa.
Yes. I found her profile, Vanessa and Xander is the name of their Instagram. And she is a sex therapist. And he always positions himself as like she's the sex therapist and I get to talk about sex with my wife. Like that's my role in this.
She's actually, she's yes, a sex therapist, but she's a licensed psychotherapist.
Mhm.
So this girl is just like stacked with knowledge. She has her bachelor's degree in human sexuality and a sociology from Brown University and a master's degree in counseling psychology.
Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa,
Okay.
we've got a smarty pants on the pod today.
Smarty pants with a couple of frickin' ding dongs. She has been,
Sorry in
um,
advance to her
sorry in
for us
advance.
being
God, she's
not
been
that
in
yeah.
thousands of magazines. You've heard her on all your favorite podcasts. She's been in Harper's Bazaar, Oprah Magazine, Refinery 29, Allure, New York Times, all the things. We
Mm,
cannot wait to welcome
she's graced more
Vanessa.
magazines than you have, my supermodel sister, I
Yeah,
fear.
she really has. She
Mm,
really has. And I cannot wait to welcome. So, welcome to the podcast.
hilarious,
And like
actually.
the chaos truly ensued. Oh my God. Listen, how many
Well, it made me
podcasters?
feel better. I'm not the only one struggling.
No.
So
Oh,
I'm so
all we
sorry, you
do
guys.
is
I can't believe it
struggle.
was literally just the
No,
mute button, like the first
all we do
thing.
is struggle on
Listen,
with podcasting.
how many podcasters does it take to get a mic to work? The answer is 3.
Thank you guys so much for your patience.
So
'Cause we're good.
excited. Amazing. Well, welcome to the Model Citizen podcast, Vanessa. We did your
Yeah.
intro before this, and we are just so in awe of you. We found you a while ago. My sister actually had sent me your page, you and your husband's page, and we were like,
Oh, I love
oh my God, we have to have her on the
Obsessed.
podcast. Like, we have to.
Obsessed.
it.
Right off the bat, you're a Santa Barbara girl. Are you 805-818? Because we are 805 girlies from Thousand Oaks, California.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm a Santa Barbara girly. I was
Yeah.
born and raised here, but I left when I was 18 and I was
Mm.
gone for 20 years and just moved back like 2.5 years ago. So it's like
Oh.
home, but I've been gone for so long, but it feels so good to be back.
Oh, it's the
Isn't it
best.
nice? We loved Santa Barbara. That was like every weekend we would try and go up there
Yep.
because it was
And we
just
lived there for a
the
little bit with
best.
our dad. Um,
Mhm.
that's so
I love
great.
it. It's so good. Yeah, it's the best. I'm glad I got a little bit of time away because I knew I was going to be back here. It's like I have to have some of my life outside of this town, but I love it
that's
so
that's
much.
right where Kayla's at right now too. She's gonna. I mean, you can talk for yourself, Kayla, but she's gonna be moving to London next year because she's not lived outside of where we are born and raised. So
Mhm.
it's that same
Yeah.
feeling of
Yeah.
like gotta get out.
Gotta get out. Gotta get
Um,
out, even if it's for a little while. And of course, I have to be so dramatic about it and move all the way across basically, the world.
par
It's
for
okay.
the
I did a
Typical
Berlin
Sagittarius.
move. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
par for the course. So Vanessa, we are just so inspired by, first of all, you are just stacked with, I mean, degrees and masters and all the things. We love your podcast, which we'll get into in a little bit. And we love following you and your husband as well. And the whole point of this series is to really open up about sex, relationships, the questions that all of us women have, but we're too
Mhm.
afraid to either talk about or even ask our friends, right? Because
Hmm.
we are so um ingrained to believe that sex is such a taboo subject. And
Mm.
I just love your authentic, refreshing approach to it all. And first off, I want to know what inspired you to become a sex therapist.
It was my parents' very awkward attempt of trying to give me the talk. So I don't know if you
Really?
guys had your
That's
own
so
version of getting the
funny.
talk. Mine was very uncomfortable. It was
Really?
basically, I was trapped in our minivan. We were driving home from family dinner night at grandma's house,
Oh
and my
my
mom
God.
was driving. She looks at me in the rearview mirror. I make eye contact in the mirror, and the one and only thing she says is, if you have any questions about, sex, you can ask us.
Right.
And it was abundantly clear to me in that moment. I was only about 11 or 12, but it was super clear that despite the fact that she was saying I could ask whatever I wanted, what she was actually saying was, please, for the love of God, don't ask us anything we don't want to talk about. This is a
Yeah.
very taboo subject.
Yes.
Please say no.
She's
Just
like, but
please say you've learned it
I
all
can check
somehow.
this off my list that I did this, right?
And I was at the time, I was very curious about sex. I was hearing things on the playground, hearing things from other kids. I had
Yeah.
questions I wanted to ask. And my parents, I had a great relationship with them.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so it was this really interesting feeling in that moment. I had no idea that a sex therapy career existed, but this moment of like, why can't we talk about this? Like, I do want to
Yeah.
ask you guys things. I am curious. I
Yeah.
am unsure about a lot of stuff. And so I just kept
Yes.
coming back to that moment over and over again as I got older. And eventually the idea started to solidify in my head. Like, I think I want to help people talk about sex,
Yeah.
make it not a taboo
Mm,
topic.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I feel like it's like you saw this void and you were like, "Oh, I'll do it myself."
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fine. It really felt
Yeah.
like a calling. Like it
Right.
called to me. It was like, this is the thing that you have to do. You
It's
have to make it more comfortable.
it's so
Right.
funny how I'm very open about it with so I have a stepdaughter who's 14, and I've always just been very open. This comes from, like, we have a European mother. She
Mhm.
was never like, she kind of really stood more on the ground of like, I don't really want to talk about that. So we were also kind of like, well,
Mhm.
we're going to go out and talk about all about it then. What is this that you
Yeah.
don't want to talk about? And so now I've adopted that into the way. I mean, I have a 14-year-old stepdaughter, and then I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. Obviously, those two are too young to even whatever. But with her, like, I'm so open with my body. I'm so open about the topic and all of that. And I always think like how different I would have thought about it growing up because I was so afraid
Mhm.
of it. I was like, "Oh my god, I am going to absolutely like losing my virginity." I felt so much guilt about. Oh my god, so much guilt about.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder how it would have been different had I grown up where it was just something like, "Hey, listen, this is that's going to happen. Um
Mhm.
if you have questions, ask them, or maybe I can even help you with what a question might look like, right? Like that
Mhm.
Mhm.
conversation is so important to have. I mean, I think that it's like our younger generation, I hope we change this narrative, and I hope that people turn to people like you that are just completely destigmatizing it.
Yeah, we should talk later because 3 is actually not too young to start talking about it.
Oh,
We
I
just came
love
out
that.
with a yeah, we came out with a course for how to talk to your kids about sex
Oh,
with this
That's
I
exact
awesome.
thing in mind. It's like a
love
really full
that.
circle moment for me. Like, I wanna help other people figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And I think a
Mm.
lot of people now, what we've switched to now is we're like, "Oh, we wanna talk about sex." Like, you can come to me with questions. But just like what you were saying, a lot of times kids don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
Like, we might have
Yeah.
some funny questions like, what's 69?" Like, the kids
Right.
are laughing at about it on
Right.
the playground, but, like, we don't know how as a kid how to ask, like, what are
Yeah.
the components of an emotionally healthy
Right.
and mature relationship, and how will
Right.
I
Yeah.
know when I'm ready to be it's like
Totally.
so
You
yeah.
don't know what you don't know, you know?
Exactly. You don't know what questions to ask for all of that. So, yeah, we have an amazing guide now to help parents walk through that.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
I love that so much.
I love how you talk about taking the intimidation out of intimacy. I think
Mhm.
that honestly, like we have so many, we have so like we have a 98% female listenership,
Mhm.
and the one thing that we get all the time is I am so intimidated to talk about intimacy and to have like true intimacy with my partner.
Mhm.
And how do you help people who have that intimidation? I mean, obviously, if you guys are listening, go to her page and you can see so much content. But if you had a woman come to you and say, I'm so intimidated by intimacy, what do I do? What are the first steps to help me with
Mhm.
this?
So, talking about it openly is definitely one of the best first steps to take. Like, we just
Mm,
have to get comfortable with these conversations. So, I'll kind of skim over that one a little bit because you guys you're helping me out with this. You're getting these conversations going.
mhm.
So, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that your audience is already like getting started on that path. But one of the other things that comes up with the intimidation aspect with us women is something that I call sexual perfectionism. So
Mm,
we have started talking a little bit more openly about sex, like as a culture. But what I've actually seen happen is a lot of women now are getting into these really perfectionistic mindsets of what they need to be like and say and do during sex.
Mm,
So it becomes very spectatoring. We're sort of like we're watching ourselves having sex and like critiquing our own performance. We're
totally.
very afraid to
so
like
true.
I mean, I grew up in the 90s. You guys remember all the women's magazines you'd see checking out in the grocery store that's like,
Ugh.
the best positions to avoid him seeing your belly flab.
Oh,
So I
always.
have that like buried in the back of my head. Like,
Same.
oh,
Or
I don't want to
Absolutely.
be, yeah,
for some
bent
reason,
over in that position.
the one that's ingrained in my head is, really wanna spice up a blowjob? I put an ice cube in your mouth. Like, I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"What?" That was, like, ingrained in my
But never
head.
anything about, like, how to achieve an orgasm with a woman, like, how to
Yeah.
tell him what you like. It's like then we're all putting, like, hot chili peppers in our mouths and
I know.
and
My
ice
favorite one was
cubes.
the donut over the
Oh,
penis.
yeah.
Just like,
Oh my
"Get out of
god, I
here,
remember
Cosmo."
that.
The donut.
Or the scrunchie over the penis. Like,
Yeah.
what did they have us out here doing just absolute circus acts?
And they were all for him, right? Nothing for
Always.
us. But
Where's
yeah,
my circus act for me?
I know,
I want
I
you hanging
know.
from the
Where's my
rafters.
scrunchie? Where's my
Yeah.
baked good? Yeah, so it's yeah, we've gotten into this place now where we're critiquing ourselves so much. We're so worried about every single moment. I want it to look perfect and be perfect. And
Yeah,
we're really forgetting to like just be in the moment and
Yeah.
be
yeah.
in the experience. And speaking in very broad stereotype here, like I do think that this is a really interesting difference between men and women. Like if you
Mhm.
ask the average man about the things that the average woman worries about during sex, he looks like a deer in the headlights. Like what?
Yeah,
What do
What?
you
I
mean?
don't. I don't even understand. What do you mean
Yeah.
belly rolls?
Yeah.
Like I'm not.
right.
I asked Xander this once. I remember asking him. I was like, "Do you ever notice like sometimes my stomach doesn't look super flattering in certain positions?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" Like
Yeah,
his
right.
mind was so blown he couldn't even comprehend
Yeah.
what I was actually at. It took like multiple times of like, okay,
Totally.
I think I actually even had to get into a weird position and be like, "Look, my
Right.
stomach
And now
rolls over
you're
like
like, "I
this."
should have just
This is
never
what
brought
I
it up."
mean.
And he was like, "Yeah, because you're bent over like that."
Right.
Of course, it was just really funny. So I think that recognizing, if you're in a relationship with a man or having sex with a man, like he is not seeing or thinking the same things that you are.
Yeah.
No, they're just happy to be there, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I know that
Mhm.
about any man that I've slept with. They're just like, "Listen, I'm happy to be here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to be a participant. I'm not gonna sit here." You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think that, like, I wish more women understood how actually true that
Yeah.
really
We
is.
should
Yeah,
really
it really is.
I'm shocked there's not like a survey out there to like maybe it's up to us to do it because it's so funny you were just saying how Xander your husband which we'll get into in a second um said he didn't notice. When I first started dating my husband, I had stretch marks already. Even before I even had children, I had stretch marks. And that to me was like my biggest insecurity. I was so afraid. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years into dating, we've definitely had plenty of sex by then, seen each other naked, done all the things, and I had s and he we were talking about insecurities one night, and I said, "My biggest insecurity is probably my stretch marks." And this was, God, 10 years ago. And he was like, "What stretch marks?" I said, "The stretch marks on my stomach and my breasts and everywhere." He had no idea. It had
Yeah.
Mm.
never once crossed his mind that like it was like that's a body. Okay, that's a body. Like as if you were like yeah, okay, then that is skin and that is an eye and a
Uh-huh.
nose and a like that's how he was talking to me and I was like, "What?" It just goes to show also
Yeah.
how I think so much of media and especially if you are coming our demographic is really women who are our age and I would say honestly like 25 to maybe 40, 45, and we grew up in this era of you know, uh, like you mentioned, perfectionism, right? And
Mm.
trying to be something, and then if we're not that thing, questioning ourselves, and we put the pressure on ourselves, and then we believe that other people in our partners,
Yeah.
especially, are seeing that, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely not.
and I think that what you're saying of like perfectionism in the bedroom is in, and we've talked about this with our last guest too. And I think that the porn industry has
Mhm.
definitely highlighted that because women and men are seeing this very, like, theatrical way.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's not that dude, sometimes sex can be awkward. Sometimes you do something, sometimes
Mhm.
queef happens or something happens. You have to move, you're sick, you have to move something out of your nose, like, and it's weird, and that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
Honestly, like, that was a really big realization for me in my own sex life. I realized some of my favorite moments of being intimate with Xander were when something awkward happened. Something
Right.
funny
Mm.
happened, and it was weird, and we had to, like, be a teammate, or, you're just looking at each other for that moment of, like, "Are we gonna acknowledge what happened, or are we
Right.
gonna both try to ignore it? Like, what are
Right.
we doing?"
Right.
And, like,
Right.
those are the moments where I actually experience intimacy with
Yeah.
him, because
Mm.
we're being real human beings having human bodies that do human things. Like,
Right.
those are the moments that feel really connecting. And, like, yeah, of course it's fun to have sex that, like, is so pleasurable and it's wild and out of control and all that kind of stuff. But, like, sex also just really is awkward. And
Yeah.
there's so much
Yeah.
beauty and connection and laughter and fun to experience with our partner. Like, that's
Yeah.
just as intimate as having, like, the explosive orgasm.
Totally. I'm
So
so happy
true.
you said that too.
Yeah. How do you define intimacy?
Ah, that's such a good question. I mean, I think of intimacy as feeling like you can be your real self in front of somebody
Mm.
else, feeling like you can show all the facets of your personality. Oh,
Mhm.
I just
did
had
your light just
no, the light fully the light
Delightfully.
things are fucking falling apart. Things are falling apart. And the fact that the fact that I kept a straight face and absolutely I was gonna act like that didn't just happen. Like I didn't just lose half of my set behind me and, and continue forward. But alas,
thought I was hallucinating for a second. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I heard a loud crash and the light's totally different now, but she's looking at me with this totally straight face
so
like nothing
convicted.
happened. Oh my
Just
god, I
selling
cried.
it so hard
Selling
that
it.
didn't just happen.
Selling it. Oh my god. Well, listen, this is welcome to my new set. Okay.
Everyone, welcome to the new
Oh my
set.
This is
god. Wow.
a mid podcast new set reveal.
Oh my god.
What
I'm,
happened? Where
so-
was the light?
I'm sorry, Vanessa. I recently
This
moved
is so
things.
funny. This has never happened.
No, I know. We're living in
Only on our
we're living
podcast
in
is this.
unprecedented times in every sense of the word. Um, I I move things around and things are wild over here. So okay,
Oh my
Vanessa.
god, I have to like wipe my eye off.
Hunter, do you want to set it back
Yes,
up
give
or
me 1 second. We're
Perfect.
thriving.
got it?
Just like now.
Nailed it.
Nailed it, you
Nailed
guys.
it.
Nothing happened.
Oh, you have to leave this
I was
in.
just gonna. I was just
Okay.
thinking that. I'm like, we have to leave this in.
We
Don't
have
cut
to
it.
Absolutely.
leave the mid-episode background reveal.
The mid episode bad background reveal. The background that got worse.
That's the thing. It's not like it's a better background.
It's a worse
so much
background.
worse.
Um.
I
Okay.
don't know what we were talking about. I was in the
Regrouping.
middle of saying something.
Defining intimacy.
Oh, intimacy.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just start over again. Oh my god.
That's great.
So I think of intimacy as being able to be your full and authentic self with another person, like allowing them to see the full range of your emotions, of your experiences, and feeling safe in that,
Yeah.
like that you're not going to be judged. And I
Yes.
think that
Right.
that's like one of the biggest tragedies of being in relationships is that so often like we choose to spend our life with somebody but then wind up feeling invisible to
Mm.
them. And so that's
Mm.
really that
So
that
many
contrast for
times.
me of like real intimacy is I really see you
Yeah.
and you really
Right.
see me.
I would. I. This is my opinion, but I would argue that that is probably the most important part in a relationship because I
Mhm.
believe that that intimacy is hand in hand with respect. And
Mhm.
I think respect is the crux of a good relationship because when you respect someone, you respect the way they're feeling no matter what. You respect their feelings, you respect their thoughts, you respect every aspect of their being.
Mhm.
And back to what you were saying, I think it's that when you respect someone and you feel respected, you do feel safe, and then you feel that intimacy, and that really
Mhm.
trickles down even into the bedroom, you know? And I
Mhm.
Mhm.
think that people, and you can probably speak on this more, is, people think that sex is just like fucking. And
Mm.
Mhm.
I think that there's also this really,
Penetration.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that there's this
It
That
can be
movement.
for
it
sure
Yeah.
totally,
if
yeah,
that's what you want.
Yeah.
And
totally.
it's really interesting because that's one thing that I hear so often from men who have sex with women. They'll tell me, she's always talking about, oh, she wants to feel emotionally connected. She wants to feel emotionally connected. But then when we're actually like in the moment having sex, she is not there.
Yeah.
She is not
Mm.
there at all. And sometimes that's
Mm.
because of the sexual perfectionism that we talked about. It's like I'm floating up here, watching
Right.
myself, judging
I'm not in
myself.
it.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also just because we're afraid. Like, we're
Yeah.
afraid of really being vulnerable and present in that moment. But yeah, if you're in relationships with men, I think that's another great reminder of like, yes, emotional intimacy outside of the bedroom is really important too. But when you have sex that is really intimate, that's not just the act, and that really is something that most men are looking for, is like that real intimacy, your real presence in that
Right.
moment. Like, that's a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if more women could hear that and know that it's less about your performance for them and it's
Mhm.
more about you being there. That's why
Mhm.
men always say like they love an eye contact during a blowjob
I was
because
just about to say
were
that.
you about to say
Yes,
that?
I was
Yeah. I
literally
could
just
tell
about
you
to.
had that I'm thinking about blowjobs face. No. I was like, because that's really what that
Yeah.
reminds me of. It's like how men are always like, I love eye contact during a blowjob. And it's like, yeah, because it
Mhm.
like she's looking right at you. Like you guys are so connected
Yeah.
and you know that she's like there for that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah.
that
It's
really
like
speaks to what you're
we
saying.
had a
Mhm.
guest on, Thea Rose, and she was saying, we asked her like about squirting basically, and she was saying that
Mhm.
men always ask for that because with a man you can see, okay, we finished, we're done, that
Yeah.
Yeah, you
firework.
came, I saw
Yes.
the
Mhm.
physical, the visual
And men don't.
manifestation of finishing.
Yeah, and I think that, like, with squirting, that's, like, the big ta-da, and that's why there's so much, talk about it, right? And guys are always like, "Oh,
Mhm.
but are you squirting? Like, is that so?" But I think the statistics on that is, I mean,
Pretty
correct me if
low.
I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
most women don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Much to
Yeah, it's like,
men's dismay.
if we're giving them so little
Yeah,
feedback that
Yeah.
they are having to look for like, okay, well, okay, squirting, sure, that
yeah,
seems obvious and clear. Even though the irony is, I'm sure as you talked about with with your other guests, is that you can squirt without having an orgasm, and squirting doesn't necessarily feel pleasurable, but
right.
like still,
Ooh,
there's
we're
no like,
gonna get I
okay,
wanna know
that's
more
the
about
like,
that. Is that true?
Yeah.
You actually I've not ever, but,
Oh, okay. They're
I
two separate processes.
okay,
Mm.
I wanna know
Mhm.
more about this.
So you can squirt without having an orgasm, and you can definitely orgasm without squirting. So a lot
Mm.
of women these days are asking me like, "Hey, I think I had an orgasm, but I must not have because I didn't squirt." I'm like, "No, no, no. Like, squirting is
Mm.
not the sign that you've had an orgasm. You can
Right.
orgasm without them." But yeah, they are two separate processes that happen. And a lot of women who do squirt, like a very small percent say that they enjoy it, but the majority of women say it either doesn't really feel much sensation at all, or they actively dislike it because it just
Mm.
feels like, I feel self-conscious about it. It makes
Yeah,
a mess on the bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's like, but men, because they have so little other feedback, they're like latching onto this thing that they
totally.
mistakenly think is like, oh, that's the gold star, that's the sign.
Totally,
Right.
totally, and,
I think
if they knew that
oh,
you
go ahead.
could probably not even have an orgasm with it, they'd be like, "Wait a minute,
Mhm.
what?"
Yeah. They'd
Yeah.
probably be like, maybe it's not as interesting. I would love for you to talk about because we are talking about like the stimulation, like vaginal stimulation. I would love for you to talk about the biological similarities between the clitoris and the penis and why like only vaginal penetration isn't like the rocking stimulus that men think it is. Like men literally think that like just a penis in there is like, oh my God, she's going nuts for this. When it's
Yes.
like, no, I think you likened it to like having their balls played with. It's like, yes,
Oh,
that's
yes. It's one of my
great.
favorite topics to talk about.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Okay,
Please
so
speak on it because I thought this was fascinating. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so true."
So we gotta
Yeah.
go. Let's go all the way back to when we are all fetuses in the womb. We
Mhm.
all start off basically as like no gender, and we don't develop our genders until we're about 9 to 11 weeks. So
Mm,
at that point, the tissues start to differentiate based on whether you're going to be born male or born female. So I always like to say, imagine like a ball of clay. I could take the same ball of clay and I could make it into a cup
Right.
or I could make it into a plate. So
Right.
it's the same
mhm.
ball of clay, but I just made different shapes with it, right?
Right.
So the tissues that make the penis for someone born male make the clitoris for someone born female. So the
Mhm.
clitoris and the penis are both the most sensitive parts of the body of the male and female genders. The clitoris has 8 to 10,000 nerve endings. The penis has 2 to 3,000. So we actually have even more sensitivity
Wow.
in the clitoris than the penis does. The problem, though, is that when we have intercourse, you're getting stimulation in your vagina. You're not
Mm.
really getting stimulation of your clitoris. The vagina has so few nerve endings, you can't even find a proper scientific tally. And if you think about childbirth, like we don't want
Oof.
to be super innervated there, right?
Right.
No,
Like
that's so true.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So you're getting stimulation when you have intercourse, you're getting stimulation of a part of your body that just is not hardwired to feel a lot of sensation. So this is the comparison I always make. It's like intercourse for a woman from a nerve ending standpoint, it's like playing with a man's balls. Like, that might
Mhm.
be fun.
Yeah.
It might feel kind of good, but it's certainly
Right.
not anywhere near enough stimulation to reach orgasm.
Right.
Ugh.
God,
We're gonna this is gonna be I have to scream this from the rooftops, like,
Yeah, but
truly.
women don't know this,
they
and so
don't.
we
No, they
feel
don't
like something's
know.
wrong with us. We feel like we're
Yes.
broken if we don't enjoy it and if we don't orgasm from it. But we actually polled
Yes.
our community. 91% of women said intercourse is not the most pleasurable activity for me. 91%. But most of us
Yep.
are feeling like, "Oh my god, something's so wrong with me. Why am I not orgasming? Why don't I like this?" Like,
Mm,
but that's totally normal.
Yeah, this
right,
blows my mind. And I think
right.
the
Mhm.
fact that there's like those stats, right, of even you were saying the nerve endings
Mhm.
blows my mind and is a full circle, makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I think this is a huge problem why people, especially women, are truly just not satisfied in the bedroom.
Mhm.
Um, and they're obviously then they don't want to have sex. And then there's other things that follow through with
Mhm.
relationship. And then it's
Yeah.
okay, well, why are you watching porn and masturbating then? And then it's all these different layers, right? But like this conversation is what should be taught in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not
Me too.
know these stats. I truly didn't. And like
Yeah.
this is incredible. So
Same.
we are such proponents for like bringing toys in, right? And saying like, listen, like use a vibrator or there's toys that
Mhm.
you can use during sex where it's also a vibrator. You know what I mean? There's so much now
Yeah.
that's on the market. And I wish that men knew this because not
Mhm.
only would we benefit, but then they would benefit because I think that they
Mhm.
want to pleasure us, you know?
Yes, they do.
And go figure, I'm sure the lesbian community knows this. I'm sorry, but they do. And
Yeah.
so they're like doing the damn thing and like we need to really get it into the men out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean if we go back to the same like ball of clay idea, so the ball of clay version for the vagina in men is a little tiny duct called the prostatic utricle. I'm actually not even sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Like that there's
I
We'll say
so
bought it.
little
I
yes.
bought
about
it.
it online.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, let's imagine some alternate universe where what we count as sex is a man rubbing his prostatic utricle on our clitoris, right? And
Right.
it's like, great, like I'm getting the stimulation I need. I'm on the part of my body that feels the best. What's
Right.
wrong with you that
Ri
you're not enjoying all your prostatic utricle stimulation? Like, you
Title of episode, prosthetic
know?
uteral stimulation.
That
That's
is
so fun.
so
But
good.
yeah, it's just so important for us to understand this. And yeah, it doesn't mean that you can never have intercourse. I love having intercourse. It
Yeah.
feels very
Yeah.
intimate to me. Like I love experimenting with different positions. I love the like closeness of our bodies, but I just recognize like that's not going to be the thing that's going to feel a lot of like make me feel a lot of pleasure. It's not going to be the thing that makes me orgasm.
Right.
So there are other things that we can do, and we make sure we spend our time equally on other things too, whether it's, using our hands, using our mouths, using toys. It's like do all of those things equally. For most couples, it's like, let's be real, sex is like a couple seconds of making out, a couple seconds of groping, and then you're on to the intercourse,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Right.
Yeah.
that's not gonna feel good for
Yeah.
you.
Right.
Totally.
No,
It becomes that
you need that
to-do
time,
list.
that like, yeah, you need that time beforehand. I think what is it like at least like 15, 20 minutes, like 15 minutes at least of like a little foreplay to like warm up, right?
Yeah. So
That's
the average woman takes about 20 minutes to reach orgasm. That's an average though. Like I do find that
mm,
when women learn how to orgasm, we can refine our technique down where we're orgasming as quickly as men are.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, in general, like a lot of times we're in such a rush with sex.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes it's Tuesday and it's 11 and I'm like, I just want to get it in. Let's just do
Right.
this.
Right.
But but there are also times where we can like take our time with each other and
Yeah.
give ourselves and our bodies the time to like let go of all the stresses of the day, be present in the moment, like land here in my own skin, and then start to like feel
Right.
pleasure and joy.
Can
Right.
you explain responsive sex drive versus
Mhm.
spontaneous sex drive and desire versus arousal?
Yes. So most people have no clue that there are two totally different types of sex drive. And this is
Yeah.
really game changing
This
information.
blew my mind actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you're a woman who thinks of herself as being low or no desire. So,
Mm,
there are two ways that we get turned on and ready for sex. In our minds, that's mental desire, and in our bodies, physical arousal. So, these two processes happen separately, and where you feel desire first is what your sex drive type is. So,
mm,
there's first up, we have spontaneous desire. That's when you feel mental desire first, and then physical arousal follows afterwards. So you're just like kind of going about your day. All of a sudden, the idea of sex pops into your head. It sounds good. And you're like, ooh, interesting. Okay. So anytime that we see sex on TV and in the movies, that's almost always spontaneous desire being shown.
Got it.
Most people don't realize that responsive desire even exists, but it is the exact opposite pattern. We feel physical arousal in our bodies first, and then the mental desire follows.
Wow.
So, a
mm,
classic way of knowing that you might have responsive desire, and by the way, research shows that men more often have spontaneous, women more often have responsive. But a classic way of knowing that you might have responsive is if you've ever been in the middle of sex or even the end of sex and you caught yourself thinking, this is fun. Why do I not seem to want this more often?
Right.
That's
mm.
responsive desire. So again, because most
Interesting.
women don't realize it exists, they think of themselves as being no or low desire because you're not like idea of sex isn't just spontaneously popping into your head, but that's not true. Like your desire just needs something to respond to. You're not going
Right.
to feel that mental desire out of nowhere.
Right. What are some
Right.
things that partners can do with these respective sex drives?
So one thing is to literally just build in more time for that responsive desire to turn on. So rather than thinking like I don't know about you guys, but when Xander, my husband, when he initiates, sometimes it feels like a pop quiz to me. Like
Right.
I'm like, wait,
Mm.
you want to have sex? Like I wasn't even thinking
Yeah.
about sex, right? Like
Right.
I
Yes.
feel like I'm
Totally.
already behind. I've like lost somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And so
Yeah.
there's a really like I have a knee jerk reaction to just turn him down because I
Right.
feel
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I was supposed to have been.
Right.
So, one thing that we've really done that's been super helpful is we've changed the way that we initiate. So, I think the classic way that most people initiate is we ask our partner like, "Do you want to have sex?" If
Mhm.
Right.
you ask a responsive desire person, "Do you want to have sex?" out of nowhere, 99 times out of 100
Could
it's going
say
to be
no.
no because you haven't had any
Yeah.
physical stimulation.
Right.
Right.
So, one thing that we do is we ask instead, "Are you open to having sex?"
I
So
like that.
just
Yeah.
changing that one word from want to open,
Right.
that like lowers the bar. It
Oh,
lowers
it
expectations.
disarms
Like, yeah,
immediately. Yeah.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
even better, like, are you open to being turned on?
Right.
Because that makes it crystal clear. Like, you don't have to be turned on right in this very second,
Right.
but are you
Mm.
interested in possibly getting there?
Right.
Yeah, I
So
love
that's
that.
really helpful. And then the second thing that we've done is we've drawn out the time between when we initiate and when we actually have sex. So most people
Mhm.
do them like back to back in the same moment. Like, do you want to have
Right.
sex? Okay, let's go now.
Right.
Right? But that can be really difficult for somebody with responsive desire again, and it can lead to that like pop quiz type of feeling that I just talked about. So a lot of times Xander and I will talk about it in the morning. Like, hey, what's our schedule for the day? Hey, do you want to have sex? Yeah. Okay. When could we
Mm.
fit it in?
Right.
Or we'll talk about it in the afternoon. Like, hey, when are you winding down for the day? Can we have sex sometime later? So just having that space allows me to put myself in the headspace of like,
Right.
oh yeah, I'm like thinking about it. I'm getting myself worked up. I'm getting excited about it.
Right. I think that one thing that is immediately popping out at me is that we have been so conditioned to believe sex shouldn't be scheduled, right? Or you shouldn't talk about it beforehand because that's
Mm.
rigid and that is,
Mhm.
it's a no no. That means your relationship isn't good and spontaneous and all these things. But hearing
Mhm.
this information of responsive sex drive and spontaneous sex drive, it gives me that full picture. And again, this is
Yeah.
something I wish was taught in health class when we all did that. We got one class, we got one like day, I think,
Mhm.
learning this because it would give each person the benefit of the doubt and it would
Yeah.
really create a full picture instead of having in our mind these preconceived notions of what sex
Mhm.
should look like, if it should be scheduled, if it shouldn't be, if it is, then it's not spontaneous and you guys are lacking that spark. And in fact, like
Mhm.
knowing this information is really eye-opening and incredible because it's like, no, actually we are prioritizing it more than anything. And
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's such an incredible, like I'm learning so much, truly.
Yeah. So people always tell me, when they start worrying about this kind of stuff, like, oh, it's not spontaneous anymore. And they'll talk about the early days of the relationship, like, oh, it was so easy, it was so effortless, like it just happened.
Mm.
But if you really think back to the beginning of your relationship, what's really happening is you guys are planning date nights, right? You're planning times that you're hanging out with each
Totally.
other. And when
Right.
I had a date with Xander on the calendar for Friday, I'm starting that countdown on like Monday, like
Totally.
Right.
put
There's a
it
lot of
Building up.
effort
in
actually going
3 more
into
days.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And I'm
effortless,
doing
I'm like,
all this
where were you
stuff.
guys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm
when am I gonna wash my hair? When am I gonna go to the
yes.
gym? What
Yep.
outfit am I
Mm.
gonna wear?
I gotta
How am I gonna
shave.
get
I gotta
myself all
have
touched
my
up for that?
yeah.
You gotta shave
Yes.
all the things. There was
Right.
nothing spontaneous about that. That was an
So true.
That's
incredible amount
so
of
true.
planning and
Yeah.
thought that was going into that. And it was so exciting too,
That is
Mm.
right?
so true. Oh my
Yeah.
Yeah,
God.
so it's not that it just like magically happens, zero effort involved. We just had a different attitude
Yeah.
about the effort involved.
Right.
And like
Right.
you're never going to replicate the beginning of a relationship. Like there's
Right.
something so special about falling in love with somebody for the very first time. But there's
Yeah.
also something really special about having like real intimacy with a person. Like you have seen me at my worst and
Yeah.
you are
Yes.
still excited to have sex with me. Like
Right.
that's a different kind of intimacy. So it's not going to be the same, but we can have oh sorry, I hit the mic. Let me
You're
fix
fine.
this. But yeah, it's not gonna feel exactly the same, but we can still change our attitude
Yeah.
about the amount of effort that goes into it and see it as a sign of, I love you, I love us, I respect you, our intimacy is important to me. I'm willing to do things
Yeah.
to make
Yes.
our intimacy great, just like I was at the beginning of the relationship.
I
I love that it
love
kinda, like,
that.
lets that pressure it takes that
Mhm.
pressure off of it having to always be so spontaneous because it's true in the beginning, like, we're putting in so much effort, and it's none of it's coming easy, like, I mean, you're going so out of your
No.
way,
Yeah.
and, speaking on date nights, another thing that I love that you talk about is the fuck first
Yes.
idea of, like, before going on a date, the fuck first rule, before
Mhm.
dates. Speak on that because I think I have found that that is, like, really great.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like, you think, oh, we're gonna go to dinner, we're gonna see a movie, whatever, and then we're gonna come home and have sex. Explain the fuck first rule though, because I think it's pretty genius.
So the fuck first rule came from Dan Savage. I always have to give him credit. It's so genius. He came up with it. But the idea is to have sex before you go out on your date night. Because I know
Mhm.
the whole date night idea like sounds really fun and exciting like, "Oh yeah, we're going to get all dressed up, we're going to go to dinner." But then you start eating. You're eating heavy restaurant food, maybe
Mhm.
you're
Yep.
drinking as well. And I don't know about you, but, like, I would always get it to the end of date night and I'd feel bloated and
Yep.
tired, and I just wanna go
Yes.
home and get into my pajamas and, like, go right to bed.
Right.
So, like, Xander and I had so many dates where we would think, like, "Oh, this is gonna be this sexy thing," and we come home and just have sex afterwards, and we never did. So,
Right.
as soon as I heard that rule, I was like, "We gotta switch this around, like, have sex beforehand, then go out on the date night." So for us, it feels really fun because, okay, first we're ensuring that it actually happens, that we're not bloated and, all full and gassy when
Right.
we're having
Yes.
sex. And it also feels like this fun little secret between the two of you at date night too. You're just like, "Ooh, yeah, we did it. We're
Totally.
connected.
So
We're having
true.
fun." Like date night just feels more fun afterwards too.
I am
Yeah.
absolutely implementing this because I can't tell
Yeah.
you so many times we're like, "Ooh, date night," and like and they'll be like, "You're gonna have a
Mhm.
little drink, and we're gonna have a little," and then you get home and you're both just like, "Oh, I'm sorry." In this case,
Yeah.
I'm usually the one. My husband has the libido of an absolute 14-year-old boy, but I'm just like, "Yeah, I feel bloated. I'm tired.
Mhm.
It's late now. It's
Yeah.
all the things." So, wow, I love this
Yeah.
rule.
And I'm
Yeah.
glad you're saying that too, because a lot of times parents will tell us like, "Oh, well, you can't do that when you have kids." And like, of course, it
Mm.
is much more complicated when you have kids and different ages and schedules, the whole thing. But there are ways to like work around this too. One of my favorite ones is if you have the babysitter coming over. Tell the babysitter, "Hey, can you take the kids out of the house because we don't want them to get like upset watching us leave? Could you go to the park nearby?
Love.
Maybe if they're going with grandma and grandpa, like, can you guys come pick them up early ahead of time?"
Love.
Just, like, give
Totally.
Mhm.
yourself that time, give yourself a little bit of space and, like, the babysitter, they don't care, like, it's okay. They'll
Totally.
take the
I
kids
think
out
that
for
that's
a little
brilliant. It's like, give them that extra hour,
bit.
beforehand instead
Mhm.
of saying, "Hey, we're gonna leave at 6:30." Say, "Hey, come at
Yeah,
5. Come at 5:30,"
yeah,
and kinda give
Yeah.
your like you said, give yourself that insurance.
And then
yeah,
then
Xander
you get to have that date in that, like,
yeah.
after sex, afterglow thing,
Yeah,
Yes,
you
totally.
know?
exactly. You'll feel so much more connected. It'll feel like a real, like, bang for your buck date night as opposed to, like, sometimes you go out on date night and you're like, "Well, I got nothing to talk about."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially
You're
as a
like, "You again?"
yeah, you're like, "Man, we, like, had to rearrange the stars to make this happen. We
Yeah.
had got the babysitter, we did the whole thing, and then you're out at date night, and it's like, this just feels so disappointing." So when
Right.
you've had
Yeah.
sex beforehand, like, you're just naturally feeling closer to each other, which is
Totally.
really
So
great.
true.
Totally.
But Xander and I have sort of expanded this to be more of a mindset too than just, like, a date night thing, but we really started prioritizing having sex earlier in the day. Because most of
Mm,
Yeah.
us
yeah.
have this association in our heads. We think of sex as like an end of the night thing. Like
Yeah.
you're crawling into bed at the end of the night. Now let's have it.
Right.
But if you think about it, like that is such a tough time to get
Oh,
excited about having sex. Like when
Yeah.
I'm crawling into
yes.
bed, I want to go to
You have
sleep.
the
I'm
least
doing the
amount of
math in my
Yes.
head.
energy.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, if I fall asleep right now, I get this amount of hours
Yeah.
of sleep. Like I just want to go to bed. I'm not getting like super turned on and excited and like want to have some long drawn out sex sessions.
Right.
So we've
Right.
started prioritizing like it depends on our schedule, but even if it's like we're doing it, before half an hour before bed or an hour before bed, like that actually can make a really big difference because we're not exhausted. It's not the very, very end of the day yet.
Totally. I love that so much. And I agree. I also feel like everyone's in a better mood the rest of the day.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
can you talk to us? I want
Truly.
to know more about Xander. How did he come into your life and how did you decide to include him in your content? And I love how open he is as well as a man talking about this.
Yeah. So we've been together since 2007. We're like, I cannot believe it. Coming up on
Amazing.
17 years together next month.
Wow.
But yeah, he started working in my business originally as like the operations manager. When I started building out online guides and courses, my business really took off and I needed help. So he was helping me with a few little things here and there on the side. And eventually we realized like, I need somebody full time. Like, can you come on and
Yeah.
help me? So he started behind the scenes. And I had this hunch right from the very beginning. I was like, I think that you need to talk about this stuff with me. My
Mm.
background is I'm a psychotherapist. I have been taught not to share anything about myself. It's supposed
Right.
to all be about my clients. But the more I thought about it, I was like, with sex, this is really all about talking about it openly. And Xander
Yeah.
and I have had our own challenges.
Yeah.
Had a lot of challenges in the bedroom. So I kept thinking, like, I want us to be able to talk about this as a real couple.
Right.
He fought me on that for 4 years.
I'm
And
sure. Yeah.
slowly, ever so slowly, I started, like, putting the camera in front of him, during on Instagram story and being like, "Hey, what do you think about this?
Right.
What's the guy's opinion on that?" So he slowly started doing stuff, and as soon as he did, like, we got such great response from our community, people saying, "It's really helpful to hear both sides. It's helpful to hear
Mm.
from, to know I have the experience and the degrees and all that, but, like, to also just hear from a real person who doesn't have a degree or any sort of, credential in it." And also to hear the male perspective. A lot of people were telling us, it makes my partner feel more comfortable watching the content with me because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it kind of feels like a double date in this sort of way.
Totally.
So yeah, he ended up fully coming in front of the camera with me, and now it's just so fun to be able to talk about stuff with him, to do this work with him, and honestly, it's made a really huge difference in our own sex life too. Like the more that we've talked about sex, the better our relationship and our intimacy have gotten. That was actually one of the original inspirations for writing our book Sex Talks, is
Yeah.
because we were like, we were talking so much about sex and our sex life is getting so much better. Like, how do we teach other couples to do
Yeah.
this who are obviously not going to have a sex therapy business?
Right.
But yeah, it's just such a joy to get to work with him and to see what he's able to help contribute to our community.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about
Mm.
your book, Sex Talks? I also want you to not only talk on your guys' book, but also your podcast and your courses.
Yeah, I'll give you the full rundown. So all of our courses and guides are at vanessaandxander.com, and it's Xander with an X. Actually, going way back to one of the first questions you guys asked me, like talking about why do we feel so intimidated? Another
Yeah.
reason why we feel intimidated is because we never learn how to have sex, right? Like
Never.
Right.
nobody ever teaches us. You
Nope.
see a couple seconds of, blurry footage in TV and movies, and of course now porn, like that's a whole other story,
Yeah.
but like we don't actually learn how to have sex. And so
Right.
Xander and I have created guides where it's like, let's show you the technique in a way that's like
Amazing.
totally shame free, really fun, doesn't make you feel like, oh, you idiot, you don't know how to give a good blowjob. Like,
Totally.
here's
Right.
how. It's like it's really, really fun. So we have foreplay guides, we have intercourse guides, we have like sex challenges,
Amazing.
like all sorts of how to initiate sex, where we talk about a lot of the initiation things that I was just talking about a few minutes ago. So those are all at Vanessa and Xander. And yeah, guides and courses are really convenient because you get it the privacy, the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go
Yeah.
into an office or anything like that. So that's all there. We also have our book, Sex Talks, the 5 conversations that will transform your love life. And so, everybody's heard the advice that like you should talk about sex, but
Right.
again, it's like, well, okay, but what do I say? And how do I
Right.
say it?
Right.
And when do I say it?
Right. Like I'm precious
So
about it. I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. One of my personal pet peeves is generic advice. So I like to be super specific. So
Yes.
we created
Mm.
like these 5 conversations that whether you're in a great place in your relationship or things are really in a tough place, like you will benefit from having these 5 conversations with your partner. And we really walk you through like, here's what to say, here's how to say it, here's when to say it, here's what to do if your partner says this in response, and here's what to do if they say
Right.
that in response. So it's like
Wow, that's
really laid out
awesome.
for you, which
Yeah.
is great. And then we also have our podcast Pillow Talks, where we talk about different funny topics each week. We've actually just recently did an episode where we tried out all the terrible 90s advice from like women's magazines, all the Cosmo tips.
Oh,
Oh
that's
Yeah.
my God.
amazing.
So that was a good
And was
one. Had
I
some
anyone
good
cannot
was
wait to
ones.
listen
any
to
of
that.
them like a home run?
No,
No.
not a single
But
one.
I'm
Yeah.
Who
sure there
was
was
writing
lots of
these?
laughs.
There was like
I
a one, I think I licked Xander's eyelid and he was like, "Okay, that feels like fine." But that was the
Right.
best. That was the best it got.
I wanna know, like, show yourself. Who was writing these?
I
And, like, how
know.
much were you getting paid to just say this crazy stuff?
I
I wonder if
know.
they just sat in there and were just like, "What's the craziest thing we can say here?"
What do you think women would actually do if we
Yeah.
printed
Yeah.
How
these
far can
things?
we
Yeah.
push it?
That's
Right.
so funny.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
we have, like, a couple of questions that we posted a questionnaire kind of like, "What would you guys ask a sex therapist if you could?" And we just have a couple of them that we
All
wanna
right. do it.
throw your way. Okay. So the first one, and this one we got so much. So this one woman says, my boyfriend and I have been together for 15 years, haven't had sex in over a year.
Mhm.
And that was a
Yeah.
lot of questions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So dry spells are incredibly common. I believe we polled our audience, and I believe it was 83% of people said they have had a dry spell in their current
Mm.
relationship. So very, very common. What I recommend when it's been like around a year, 6 months to a year or so, where it just really feels like there's that awkwardness around it. Number one, you have to acknowledge it. A lot of people are like, how do I break the dry spell but not be awkward about it? And I'm like, you can't. It's
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
awkward and you just have to deal with the awkwardness,
Yeah.
right? So you
Right.
do have to talk about it and acknowledge it. And what I encourage couples to do is to really focus more on the external factors that have been at play. Like people don't do dry spells just for fun. Like
Right.
Right.
you get into a dry spell because somebody's been dealing with mental health issues,
Right.
or your
Mhm.
parent has been really sick, or schedules have just been so crazy. Maybe you just had kids. There's like just hasn't been any time. So like
Right.
talk about that aspect of it. So you're blaming it more on the situation
Yeah.
and not
Mm.
making it feel like it's your fault or somebody's getting defensive or anything like that. And really focus on the emotional impacts of sex. Like, of
Right.
course, if you're like, hey, I miss putting it in you,
Yeah.
like, that's
Yeah.
not going to go over
Right.
well.
No.
But if you talk about like, hey, I know life has been so busy lately, but I really miss you. I miss you
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much. Like I miss that feeling of closeness and just you and me when it's you and me against the world. So focusing more on that, like, what do you feel emotionally when the two of
Yeah.
you guys are connecting physically? And then if it's really been a long time, I recommend actually breaking it down and just starting to like kind of round the bases again. So
Right.
Mm.
you don't have to break the dry spell by like, we got to have intercourse
Right.
tonight and
Right.
that's it. Like maybe it's just trying to make out a little bit more a couple of times. Maybe it's using your
Yeah.
hands on each other next time. Like you can actually make it feel kind of fun of like, yeah, let's like go through the bases together again for,
Totally.
kind of pretend it's the first time.
I
I
love
love
that
that kind of just like
advice.
kind of like slowly getting back into it. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like a home run right away
Right.
Yeah.
situation. Like you can
And also
kind of like
if you're having intercourse, the first time is just gonna be bad. And you just have to
yeah.
Yeah.
talk about that ahead of time,
Yeah.
like, no
Mhm.
expectations.
Right.
We're just getting it done. We're getting back on the
Right.
saddle. Like, it's gonna be
Totally.
fast. It's not gonna be super enjoyable, and that's okay.
I think
Yep.
that
Then you'll
that
have the
is
next time.
such
Yeah.
brilliant,
Love that.
digestible advice. I'm curious. We have one more question I do want to get to because we've taken so much of your time, but I have a personal question that we had on our list that we didn't get to yet. Is there an average amount of times a week that people have sex? Have you guys polled your audience at all for it? Is there a statistic for it?
There is. I want to be really clear though that there is no magic number.
Right.
So
Mm.
as a therapist, like I have worked with couples who had sex a couple of times a year and were
Hmm.
Mhm.
very happy and satisfied, and I've worked with couples who have sex multiple times a day and were unsatisfied and feeling disconnected. Like there truly
Wow.
is
Wow.
no magic number. And I think that when we have sex to try to hit a quota, like okay, we
Hmm.
just have
Mm.
to do it 2 times a week and we're going to be okay, it's
Right.
gonna be bad sex.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so important to recognize the connection between our enjoyment of sex and our desire for it. If you
Mm.
are not enjoying the sex you're having, it doesn't make any sense for you to crave it. So
Right.
Yeah.
don't have sex just to hit a quota. Like if you focus more on your enjoyment of it, a natural frequency will emerge. But I will answer the question because I know people are always curious. So we've had about 70,000 people respond to this poll by now. And 75% of that entire bucket fell into 3 categories, and they were evenly split. So it was like 25, 25, 25. So it was 2 to 3 times per month, 2 to 3 times, 2 to 3 times per month, once a week, and 2 to 3 times per week. So very
Mm.
evenly
Interesting.
split between those 3 buckets. We also looked at satisfaction. So we wanted
Mm.
to see like, are people, if they're having it 2 to 3 times a week, are they happier than the ones that are having it 2 to 3 times a month? There was no difference.
That is
Equally
Interesting.
very
satisfied. Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think people will be really pleased to hear that. I think that
Yeah.
because there's always this like number that people are like, but
Mhm.
it's been so long, and like, does that mean we're failing in a relationship? And it's like, no, not at all. And I
Yeah.
think it's really refreshing for people to hear that. Okay, my last question is, God, we did get a lot, but I'm just gonna do one
We can do
more.
a part
Yeah, totally.
2.
The I'm no, you guys, this is incredible.
This has never happened
Never
before,
in
by the way,
Time.
in 4 years,
of podcasting.
never been the same
And thank
space.
God you're so cool
Thank
about
God
it,
you're so
Vanessa,
cool, Vanessa.
because
And right when
Jesus
I said we could do
Christ.
a part 2, I
I
was like,
mean,
"Finally,
literally,
we're alike."
God said, "Fine." Okay, to round this out, is it realistic to ask your husband to not watch porn, or do all guys really watch it?
Oh, that's such a tough question. So,
It is
it's
tough.
really you can ask, but it also gets to be your partner's decision too, and the 2 of
Yeah.
you have to talk about it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there is no right or wrong here. Like, my personal belief, I don't believe that porn is a horrible thing that nobody should watch. I don't think it's, like, an amazing thing. Like, there are also some, a lot of challenges that come along with it. So it's like it's something that every couple needs to navigate together. But
Yeah.
ultimately, what really matters is not like, are you watching porn or not? It's really more about your relationship. So is the
Right.
issue, hey, I don't want you to watch porn because you turn me down when I initiate sex and then you go watch porn.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's the real issue, not the porn. So I
Right.
encourage people to get to the root of what is coming up. Is it that your partner's turning you down? They're not spending enough time with you. You're worried about what they're seeing on the porn, that they're like
Right.
bringing it back into your sex life. So like figure out what is the root issue rather than just the porn.
I love that. Vanessa, you are a
Interesting.
wealth of knowledge. I could talk to you for hours. I love the way you give information. I love how specific you are. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the Model Citizen podcast. And you guys go and check her out, Vanessa and Xander. And Xander is spelled Xander.
Mhm.
I'm gonna buy your courses. I'm just curious. I'm
Same.
all the things. I'm so
Oh,
excited,
that's such a huge
and
compliment.
you're such a great find, and all of our girls will just absolutely love you. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for listening. You can catch a new episode of Model Citizen every Thursday. And please don't forget to follow the podcast so you don't miss any of the action. We want to hear from you. So please leave a rating and review and follow us on socials for all the behind the scenes action at Hunter McGrady and Michaela McGrady. And don't forget, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are capable of doing all wonderful things. Bye, guys.